When I first met David, I thought he was a gift I didn't deserve. It was one of those warm spring evenings when the sky looked like a painting, soft pink, fading gold. I had just closed my bakery for the day, exhausted but proud. I had built that bakery with my own hands. Every pastry, every shelf, every smiling customer, they all represented years of struggle and survival. I was 33, divorced, and determined never to let another man steer my life. But fate, as I later learned, has a dark sense of humour. David walked in one afternoon, wearing a crisp white shirt and a tired smile. He ordered coffee and a slice of lemon cake. "You make this yourself?" he asked, his eyes warm and curious. "Yes," I said, brushing flour off my apron. He smiled wider. Then I think I found my new favourite place. Something in his tone, calm, steady, sincere, disarmed me. He came back the next day, then the day after that. Soon, he was part of my routine, sitting by the window with his laptop, talking to me between customers. At first, I thought he was just friendly, but slowly his words started to stick. He'd tell me I looked tired, that I worked too hard, that I deserved someone to take care of me, and I started to believe him. A few months later, we were inseparable. David wasn't rich, but he carried himself like someone who knew exactly where he was going. He worked in real estate, or so he said, and he had this way of talking about the future that made it sound secure, even magical. He'd say, "Angela, one day we'll buy a bigger place, maybe a house with a garden. You'll bake, I'll build us a deck and we'll drink coffee under the stars." I didn't realise he was describing my dream house, the one I already had. You see, I had inherited my mother's old home, a modest but beautiful two-storey with a wraparound porch. I'd renovated it myself after my divorce. It was my safe place, my proof that I could build something on my own. When David moved in, I thought it was love's next step. We painted the kitchen together. He built new shelves in the pantry. Every nail he hammered, every wall we painted, it all felt like partnership. I didn't notice how he slowly started taking ownership of things that were mine. At first, it was just language. "This is our home," he'd say when guests visited. "Our kitchen, our space." It felt sweet, romantic even, but one day, he said something that didn't sit right. We were having dinner with his cousin, and he said, "Yeah, when we bought the house, Angela knew exactly what she wanted. Bought." I almost corrected him, but he gave me that soft smile, the one that used to melt my defences. I let it go, but that night as I washed dishes I couldn't shake the unease. I asked, "Why did you say we bought the house?" "You know it was mine before we met," he laughed. "Oh, babe, don't be so serious. People don't need to know every little detail. We're a couple. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine." He kissed my forehead, and I forced a smile. But deep down, something inside me whispered, "Pay attention." Months passed. Then one evening, he brought it up again, but this time, there was no charm in his voice. We were sitting on the couch when he said, "Hey, Ange, I was thinking, maybe we should put the house under both our names. You know, legally. It'll make things easier for us. Insurance, taxes, all that boring stuff." I froze. He must have noticed, because he leaned closer and said softly, "You don't trust me, do you?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. I hated that feeling. I'd been told I was too guarded before, by my ex, by friends, by people who thought independence was selfish. So I sighed. "It's not that, David, it's just, this house means a lot to me." He nodded slowly, pretending to understand. But over the next few weeks, he brought it up again and again. Every time I hesitated, he'd turn cold, withdrawn. You always need control, he'd mutter. You don't know how to let someone love you. Until one night, after an argument that left me shaking, he said, if you really saw me as your husband, you'd trust me with your home. I signed the papers 2 days later. The day I signed that document, I thought I was saving my marriage. In reality, I was giving him the weapon he'd used to destroy me. At first, nothing changed. We went on as usual. Breakfast together, movie nights, little kisses before bed. But underneath it all, something had shifted. His voice became sharper. His jokes crueler. He'd criticize how I ran the bakery, how I dressed, how I talked to customers. He started staying out late. Once, I called him at 11 p.m. He didn't answer. At midnight, still nothing. At 2 a.m., he walked in, reeking of whiskey and cheap perfume. Don't start, he snapped before I even said a word. I was out with clients who wear red lipstick. Apparently, I slept on the couch that night. The following weeks were hell. He stopped touching me. He stopped talking to me, except to complain or criticize. And then one evening he came home early. I thought maybe he was trying to make peace, but instead he tossed an envelope onto the table. I'm selling the house, he said flatly. I blinked. What? You can't do that. Actually, he said, leaning back, I can. It's in my name now. My knees went weak. He smiled, that smug, cruel smile I didn't recognize anymore. You've been a good sport, Angela, but this place deserves someone who appreciates it. You should start packing. That night I packed 2 bags, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. It was raining when I left. I remember standing at the gate, looking back at the porch light, flickering through the downpour. The house I'd bled for was no longer mine. I moved into my friend Lisa's apartment. She offered her couch, her shoulder, her silence when words hurt too much. For weeks I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I just kept replaying every moment, the smile he gave me the day I signed, the warmth in his voice that had all been fake. One night, Lisa said, Angela, you need to fight back. I shook my head. He's got the papers, Lisa. The law's on his side. But she wasn't convinced. Maybe, but karma isn't. And she was right. I went to the same lawyer who drafted the house transfer. I told him everything, how David pressured me, manipulated me, lied to me. At first he hesitated, saying it was all legal, but when I said, you were there, you saw me crying. You knew I didn't want to sign. His eyes flickered. He whispered, you shouldn't talk about this. I leaned forward. Then maybe I should record what you just said. He froze. That was the start of my revenge. I hired another lawyer, a woman this time. Fierce, sharp and brilliant. She told me, we're not just fighting for a house. We're fighting for your dignity. We filed for fraud and coercion. It took months of hearings. Documents, cross-examinations. David showed up to every hearing in his sleek suit, pretending to be the victim. He told the court I was unstable, that I'd gifted him the property out of love. But the recording I had of his lawyer's confession changed everything. The moment the judge heard that, David's face went pale, and when the final verdict came, the judge said the words I'd prayed for. This court finds the property rightfully belongs to Ms. Angela Johnson. I walked out of that courtroom and felt the sun for the first time in months. David didn't look at me. He couldn't. A few weeks later, I returned to my home. The house looked different, colder, emptier, but it was mine again. I cleaned every corner, repainted the walls, planted fresh flowers by the porch. That night, I sat on the steps holding a cup of tea and whispered, "You can't steal peace, David. You never had it to begin with." But life, as it always does, had its own twist. A few months later, I got a call from a mutual friend. David had lost everything. The woman he left me for, yes, there was one, had drained his bank account, maxed out his credit cards and disappeared. He tried calling me. I didn't answer. He even came to the bakery one morning, looking defeated, wearing the same fake smile that once fooled me. "Angela," he said, "I just want to talk." I looked him in the eye and said, "You should have thought of that before you threw me out of my home." Then I turned the sign on the door to closed and walked away. Now, every morning I wake up in my house, my real home, and smell fresh bread baking. The walls no longer echo with his voice. Just mine, and that's enough, because sometimes losing everything you built with someone is how you rediscover the power of building for yourself. If you've ever trusted someone who turned your love into leverage, remember, you can rebuild. You are not weak for falling. You are powerful for standing back up. Share this story to remind someone that strength isn't born in comfort, it's forged in survival. Subscribe to Echoes from Her for more stories that prove healing always finds a way.